In today's episode, yes, we are going to take a look at a couple of people, witnesses who have had relationships with the defendant, Laurie Shaver. What are they going to say? Stay tuned. Hey, hello everybody. Welcome back to the channel, Crafting and Crime Daily. I'm your host, Rebecca, and I tell you all about what's happening in these live trials that you see all over YouTube. Currently covering the case of Laurie Shaver. This is a Florida trial out of Lake County, Florida. She lived in Claremont, Florida, which is Central Florida. Her then husband, Michael Shaver, worked at the Epcot Center, and he was a mechanic on one of the rides. Anyway, he disappears November 7th, 2015. No one's seen him since that day until they dug his body up out of the backyard. He was buried under a cement slab. Well, he was buried, then the slab was poured. He was found under the cement slab. And there are conflicting theories about what actually happened. And so far, we have not heard the testimony of her daughter, who was 7 years old at the time in 2015, which would make her, 16, 17 years old now. And if I'm wrong, it's because I don't do math. But in any case, she may have allegedly confessed to this crime. So I don't know if we're going to hear from her. And also, the defense in their opening arguments insinuated that although this child went and got the gun and came into the room with the gun, as she's coming into the room with the gun, Jeremy Townsend, a man that was having an affair with Laurie Shaver while still married to Michael Shaver, who was married to another woman, he took the gun from the 7-year-old and shot Michael Shaver in the head. Yeah. So, what really happened? We don't know. We don't know. In any case, let's talk about the medical examiner. He took the stand, no longer lives in the state of Florida, but for many years did autopsies in Central Florida. So he did the autopsy on the remains that were recovered under that cement slab behind in the backyard of Laurie Shaver on her large property where she was living in a trailer. At the time that the body was dug up, she was living there with a man named Travis Filmer. Now we're going to hear from him too. So the medical examiner examined the remains and said there was no evidence of trauma. Well, I don't know how you would know that. All you have are bones. So, except no broken bones. Okay. Then he actually showed some of those bones. Like he took them out of the box and showed them to the jury. I'm like, oh, why do we need to see that? Put them back in the box. Anyway, he sent them over to a forensic anthropologist because they were trying to get DNA, extract DNA from it, and to ascertain, how long has his body been under the ground. But he did find a projectile within the skull. Now you're thinking, all you've got is a skull bone. How did you find this projectile? And he said, you'd think it would be like rattling around. It wasn't. It was, he said, over time, because of the passage of time, it had embedded itself into the skull. So it could be one of the reasons why they could not identify it positively as having come from that gun, because it had probably been deteriorated over time. I'm guessing. So that's what the medical examiner had to say. So the cause of death was single gunshot wound to the head, the back of the head. There was no exit wound. Back of the head. Keep that in mind when we're listening to this testimony. He was shot in the back of the head. Like, when did he turn around with all these people in the room? I don't know. So one of the people that took the stand was Travis Filmer. Travis is Laurie Shave Filmer's current husband. And so right off the bat, he's giving testimony, and the state just gets it right out of the way. You have to always deal with the bad stuff first. He has 3 felony convictions. So I don't know what they were for, but now everybody knows about it, and you can choose to believe him as being credible or not because he has these felonies. That's what it's there for, because the defense is going to bring it out if you don't bring it out as your witness. So they bring that out, and then he talks about how they first started dating in May of 2016. Now, later on, we're going to learn that she had broken up with Jeremy Townsend in April of 2015. So, and then she moves on and starts dating Travis in May of 2016. Yeah. I know. Follow the bouncing ball, people. I'm sorry. So when they had first met a while, weeks before this, because Travis's brother was dating Laurie's roommate. Laurie was living on the property where, later on the body's found, where the double wide trailer is, this large piece of land, the concrete slab has been poured. She's living there with her 2 children, her and Michael's 2 children, and she had a roommate named Rebecca who was dating Travis's brother. So when they first met, it was just kind of casual because he'd go over to see Travis and Rebecca. And they were both in other relationships. So I guess when she got out of this relationship with Jeremy Townsend, they jump in and start dating. He moves into that home in July of 2016. And in September of 2016, they had a commitment ceremony. And apparently there was a exhibit shown to the jury of this pictures of this commitment ceremony. She's wearing a white dress. It looks like a wedding. He's like, we did not tell anybody it was a wedding. We told everybody it was a ceremony. Well, why not a wedding? Why not marry her? She didn't want to get married because she had been in a very violent, tumultuous relationship, and she didn't want to sign any objection. I don't know what she didn't want to sign. He got cut off. I'd be curious to figure out what she didn't want to sign. So they have this commitment ceremony, and he's living there on the property. And in the back, they've got this area of dirt where Michael had dug up and was going to build this duck pond. And he said it would get muddy, every time it rains. And it rains all the time in Central Florida, every afternoon in certain times of the year. So he said it would just turn into a mud pit. Well, her daughter from Michael, the marriage with Michael, was having a birthday, and they decided, what, let's just pour some concrete over this so that everybody doesn't have to stand around in the mud during the birthday party. So he said, we already had the cement in the garage. Now, I don't know why you have all the cement in the garage. So we just went and rented a concrete mixer, and he and Laurie poured the slab. They did get married later on. I don't know when that was, sometime in 2020 during the pandemic. And they went on to have 2 children, and they're still married. So I'm going to show you a little portion of a video that was of his testimony here.
Now, in 2018, law enforcement responds to your home, and eventually skeletal remains are found in your backyard. Do you remember that?
I do.
And at that time, did you ask Miss Shaver how that body got back?
I did not.
So this person that you were in this committed relationship with, that had told you that her husband had just left, just had no contact with the kids, there's a body found in the backyard, and you don't ask her a single question.
That's not exactly what happened. Laurie called me on the day that the detective showed up at the house. I was at work, I had just gotten off work, and she called me sobbing, crying, and I asked her what was wrong. She proceeded to tell me that detectives had shown up at the house and they were asking about Michael. She then told me that they had left. I told her I will be home shortly. I worked real close to where we were living, and I got home, walked in the house. As soon as I walked in the house, a detective knocked on the door. He proceeded to ask me if I knew anything about Michael. I said, no, I've never met him. I couldn't even tell you what he looks like if you showed me a picture. And which detectives did show me a picture. I was like, okay. They just told me we'll be in touch, and that was that. I walked back in the house. I told Laurie, I said, it looks like something serious is going on. You need to get an attorney.
But specific.
So interesting guy. So he didn't have anything negative to say, but he didn't, nothing about Michael, nothing about nobody being buried there. So then the next person on the stand, Vanessa Townsend. She in 2016, this is Jeremy Townsend's wife, the one he was married to while he's having an affair with Laurie Shaver. And he's going to be the next witness I talk about. So Vanessa in 2016 was working at this elementary school as a teacher when she receives these flowers in April of 2016. I think she said April 11th. And there was a note on the flowers. Listen to her reading this note.
Is this a difficult day for you?
It is. It says, roses are red, violets are blue. My wife is a whore. Your husband is too. Sorry about this. Check your Facebook message. We need to talk. Mike.
So she said, they even entered that note into evidence. She saved it. She gave it to the police and they saved it. It was a piece of evidence. The jury can go back and look at it during their deliberations. So she read it, and then she said she had never had any interaction with a guy named Michael Shaver. Didn't know who he was. So she goes on to Facebook when she gets home from her job that day, and this happens to me all the time. You look, if you're not looking really closely on your Facebook Messenger, you won't see that someone is trying to has sent you a friend request. I miss those all the time. I really do. So she looked and she saw that this Michael Shaver had sent her several friend requests. So she responded. And once you respond on a friend request, then now you're friends. Now you can talk to each other. So there were multiple messages from him, and like 2-3 messages. And in the third one, he said, you should be getting your delivery soon, which obviously was the flowers. Then they exchanged phone numbers, and he starts texting her and telling her she should divorce her husband. First he sends all the texts. She thinks it's Michael Shaver. He sends texts between her husband and Laurie. Now she at this point, she did not know her husband was having an affair. Well, now she does. And he's encouraging her to go get a divorce, even recommending a divorce attorney. So she confronts her husband. Hey, Jeremy, well, something weird happened today, and you got some explaining to do. Yeah. So she confronts him, and at this point, they decide they're going to stay together. He breaks it off with Laurie, and says, I don't want anything to do with her after this. And we are going to hear from him. And they stay together. They're still together. Then this morning, Jeremy Townsend takes the stand. And this was fascinating. First of all, he's not bad looking. Oh my God. Like, what Harlequin novel did this guy fall off the cover of? Because, whew. So Jeremy is retired Army military. Now, I could tell from the defense attorney's questions that perhaps he represented to people that he had been special forces and a sniper. He said he wasn't, but apparently he might have represented himself to do that. Yeah, he bolstering his military career. Anyway, he is retired. He was medically retired after 5 years of service when he went over to Afghanistan and was shot several times in the legs and the upper back or abdomen. He can't work. He does not work. So he and his wife, they have children. So she worked. He would take their son to the park where he meets Laurie in September of 2015. Now, this is just a couple of months prior to nobody ever seeing Michael Shaver again. So they start this friendship where they met in the park 2 or 3 times. And probably about the third time they meet up in the park, they decide to take things to the next level, so to speak, at her house. So they begin having an affair. Now, by the time they're having an affair, he's saying it wasn't until December, the first week of December of 2015, which is 3 weeks after Michael goes missing, which he did not know anything about. So we're supposed to believe, the jury's supposed to believe that September, October, November, no relationship, no physical relationship with this woman. They're just chatting in the park. Saturday in the park. Anyway, she told him she was going through a divorce and that her husband, Michael Shaver, had left her, gone off, drove off with another guy, and she doesn't know where he is, and he had left in November. So in December, they start their physical relationship, according to him. Interesting. So the defense, the defense, first, before the defense gets up there, here's how it was wrapped up with the prosecution. Listen here.
At any point when you were over at the Shaver residence, was Michael Shaver there?
No.
At any point did you arrive on a scene where Michael Shaver had been shot?
Say what?
At any point did you arrive at the Shaver residence or any other place where Michael Shaver had been shot?
No.
At any point were you involved with any sort of altercation with Michael Shaver?
No.
At any point did you shoot or injure Michael Shaver?
No.
At any point were you involved with disposing of the body of Michael Shaver?
No.
And after the affair was exposed, what happened with your relationship with Laurie?
I cut it off.
Nothing further.
Thank you.
So the defense gets up there and says, so you got her pregnant, didn't you? No, I did not get her pregnant. You got a tattoo? No, I did not get a tattoo. I have a tattoo, but, and he described the tattoo. I don't know what the relevance of this tattoo was. He was asked, was he stalking her even after he supposedly ended the relationship? You were following her? Driving up on her? No. Denied that. So you want the jury to believe that you and Laurie, because he said, Laurie got upset. She wanted him to leave his wife. He didn't want to. So you and Laurie had an understanding. He said, yes, we had an understanding that this was just friends with benefits. Okay. No strings attached. That was our understanding. Okay. Interesting, huh? Yeah. So that's where we are at today. I'm going to take a look at all the witnesses I missed because I'm sort of jumping around. I wanted to give you some highlights of some really good witnesses. And I still have no idea what happened to Michael Shaver. As a juror, hearing what I've heard thus far from these witnesses, how did he get in the ground behind her house? We have no idea. How did this happen? In any case, have a wonderful day, everybody, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.